You're 11 years old, and it's your turn to fetch water from the beach well. It's early morning. The tide's low. The sand is damp beneath your bare feet. The sun hasn't yet crested the hills behind your little Portuguese fishing village. You fill the wooden pail and start back up the path, humming the tune your mother sings while she kneads bread. That's when you hear it, oars slapping water. Rhythmic, coordinated, too many for a merchant ship. You stop, listen. Then you see the sails. Black, low, fast. You drop the pail. The water spills out onto the dirt like blood. By the time you reach the village square, everything is fire and screaming. The men who come ashore are wrapped in sashes and curved swords. They don't speak your language, but they don't need to. They're not here to talk. You see old Senor Carvalho, the one who carved toys for the children, cut down before he can even shout a warning. You see your sister dragged by the hair, your mother trying to fight them off with a ladle before she's struck to the ground. You are grabbed from behind and flung over a shoulder like a sack of flour. Your face hits the sand, then wood, then darkness. You'll never see your village again. This is the beginning of your life as a slave of the Barbary pirates. But it's only the beginning. The ship rocks with each wave, but you don't move. You can't. Your wrists are bound. Your ankles too. You're packed in tight with dozens of others. Men, women, even children like you. You can't see them, but you can hear the whimpers, the coughs, the prayers whispered through cracked lips. The smell is unbearable. Sweat, vomit, rot, and worse. They feed you stale bread if you're lucky. A sip of water. Sometimes not even that. The pirates don't care if you make it to shore alive. Dead slaves don't fetch a price. But there are always more villages to raid. You vomit on the 3rd day. On the 5th, someone beside you stops breathing. They don't remove the body for 2 more days. You're 11, and you already know what death smells like. And when land finally appears and the chains come off, the nightmare only deepens. Because next comes the market, and that's where you'll lose your name. They strip you down in the hot sun. You're shoved into a line, naked, filthy, trembling. Buyers circle like wolves. You see one man pry open another boy's mouth, inspecting his teeth like he's a mule. A woman beside you is slapped hard across the face when she tries to cover herself. They make her spin slowly, twice. You try to stand still. You try not to cry. But your knees buckle when the man with the yellow turban points at you and raises 2 fingers. Sold. You're led away in chains again. This time to a prison they call the bagnio. A stone cell where the sun never reaches, where the walls sweat and the floor crawls. Dozens of bodies packed together like cattle. No beds, no fire, no hope. But your fate is still better than some, because you haven't been chained to the oars. Not yet. You meet Joao in the bagnio. He's older, maybe 17. His wrists are scarred from iron, and his back is striped with lash marks that never fully healed. He tells you about the galleys, about being chained to a bench with an oar too heavy for one man to lift alone, about rowing day and night, in storms, in battles, with no breaks, not even to eat or sleep or relieve yourself. You do everything in that seat, he says, until you die. You don't want to believe him. But that night, you hear the guards dragging 2 men away, both strong, both healthy, galley slaves. They'll never touch land again. You wonder if it's better to die now, while you can still remember your mother's lullaby. But your new master have more uses for you, and not all of them involve ships. You're bought by a merchant with soft hands and a strange smile. He takes you into his home, washes you, clothes you in linen that feels like cobwebs. You want to be grateful, but you know better now. You serve his guests. You sweep his floors. You pour wine for men who laugh in languages you can't understand. You don't eat with them. You don't speak unless told to. And when you're alone, he teaches you words in Arabic, teaches you to pray, tells you your old God has forgotten you, tells you you're lucky. Some of the other children in the house are girls. They disappear into rooms and come out quieter, sadder. You don't ask questions, you just clean. You wait. and you wonder how much longer you'll be worth keeping, because here value is everything, and nothing lasts. You were 12 the first time he dressed you in silk. It was pale blue, with tiny golden threads that shimmered in the candlelight. A servant combed your hair and rubbed perfumed oil into your skin until you no longer recognized the boy in the polished brass mirror. The merchant said you would serve dinner tonight, not with plates or pitchers, but with your presence. He said you had a graceful way of moving and that the guests would appreciate it. At the banquet, you stood silently against the wall as robed men lounged on cushions and laughed over roasted lamb. One called you the gazelle, another clicked his tongue and said something that made the rest roar with laughter. You didn't understand the words, but you understood the way they looked at you. You weren't a person to them. You were a decoration, a prize, a body. Sometimes when the wine flowed and the music grew louder, they would pull you close and make you dance, slowly, awkwardly, while their eyes drank you in. Some boys didn't come back after these nights. No one asked why. No one spoke of it. You learned how to keep your eyes low, how to smile without smiling, how to disappear even when the room was watching only you. And in the quiet afterward, when the house was asleep and your face still smelled like foreign hands, you would lie awake and press your fingers against your chest just to make sure your heart was still beating, because sometimes you weren't sure it was. Years pass. You grow taller. Your hands harden. You learn the new language. You speak it better than your old one now. Sometimes you forget your real name. The merchant begins to trust you. He teaches you to read, to count. You're taught how to carry yourself around officials. You eat better, sleep better. Sometimes it almost feels normal, until a new boy arrives, fresh from the market. His eyes are wide, terrified. His face reminds you of your brother. You reach out to comfort him, and he flinches, because to him, you're one of them. That's when you realize what you've become. Not free, just useful. One day, the merchant's house is buzzing. Messengers, soldiers, rumors of ships off the coast, English ships, American ships. They say the sea is no longer safe for the pirates. They say something called tribute won't be paid anymore. They say Algiers was bombarded, that 4,000 slaves were lost in a single day. The merchant seems nervous. You pretend not to notice. You're 20 now. You stand on a rooftop in Tunis and watch the harbor burn. War has reached even here. The merchant is gone. The house is abandoned. And you are no longer anyone's property. But what are you now? You can't return home, if it even still exists. You don't know your family's names. You barely remember your own. The world that raised you is gone. The world that used you is collapsing. And you're stuck somewhere in between. A shadow, a ghost. One of over 1 million Europeans enslaved by the Barbary pirates between the 16th and 19th centuries. Some were sold, some were broken, some were absorbed into new identities so deeply they never came back, and most forgotten. Your story was never written in books. Your name was never carved on monuments. You were not a general, not a sultan, not a hero, just a child stolen from his home and reshaped by power. But the sand you once walked on still remembers. The sea still carries whispers. The ruins of the Bagnios still stand, buried behind tourist markets and souvenir shops. The history of the Barbary pirates is often told in numbers, in trade routes, naval battles, treaties. But your story isn't about treaties. It's about fear and silence and survival, because the worst thing the pirates stole wasn't your body. It was your past and your name and the memory of what your life might have been.